Chapter 159. Top Match. Lin Fei slowly stood up. He stared directly at this middle-aged man. This was the only one, and possibly the last one, who sought him out for a saber debate. And also a saber practitioner who considered life and death. Lin Fei felt a sense of respect. This was a real martial artist, a true saber master. 9 Profound Sect, Lin Fei. Wanderer of the martial world, Shen Liangxin. A flash of enlightenment struck Lin Fei's mind. 20 years ago, there was a transient figure in the martial world, Shen Liangxin, a saber fanatic who defeated all opponents across 2 states with a single saber. Lin Fei finally remembered. Since he was aiming to meet all the saber masters under the heavens with his saber, he naturally had to know about the top saber masters in Great Shan. He had also asked Ling Yura to collect a list of all the top saber masters in the past 50 years. Among them was saber fanatic Shen Liangxin. However, the information that Lin Fei collected clearly stated 20 years ago, Shen Liangxin suddenly appeared and then suddenly disappeared. Like a flash in the pan, it was only 3 months. But during those 3 months, Shen Liangxin, with a single saber, defeated all the martial arts masters of the 2 states and 18 prefectures. He also got a nickname in the martial world, known as the Saber Fanatic. However, the Saber Fanatic then disappeared, vanishing without a trace. No one could investigate any clues, as if evaporated from the world out of thin air. When Lin Fei first saw Saber Fanatic Shen Liangxin, he didn't really care. After all, the records at that time stated Shen Liangxin was only at the mid-stage of a master. Not worth mentioning. With Lin Fei's strength, even a Grand Master in martial arts was not his opponent, let alone a mid-stage martial artist master. Perhaps only an opponent like Li Yibai from Hidden Sword Sect was worthy of Lin Fei's attention. However, he didn't expect this saber fanatic to actually come to him. Moreover, he even dared to initiate a saber debate. Truly worthy of the name Saber Fanatic. Obsessed with the saber, regardless of all costs. Shen Liangxin didn't speak. He slowly reached out to the hilt of his saber. However, he didn't rashly draw his saber. At their level, who struck first and who struck last didn't really matter anymore. A single saber could decide victory or defeat. Boom. Lin Fei's saber intent exploded at the moment Shen Liangxin's hand had just grasped the hilt of his saber. As a saber master, especially one who had comprehended saber intent, even reaching saber intent transcendence, all saber practitioners were at a natural disadvantage in front of Lin Fei. For some saber practitioners with a weaker will, in front of Lin Fei, even drawing their sabers was a luxury. The vast saber intent like a raging flood surged toward Shen Liangxin. It was as if thousands of sabers were cutting at Shen Liangxin. However, the moment Shen Liangxin's hand grasped the hilt of his saber, a more terrifying saber intent shot up to the sky. Buzz. The void seemed to twist all at once. Lin Fei's eyes narrowed sharply. He sensed a terrifying saber intent from the saber fanatic, exploding in an instant. Moreover, this saber intent was extremely condensed. Also extremely pure. It was like a regular saber, but it was this purity that was very terrifying. Because this was saber intent perfection. For the first time, Lin Fei's saber intent was suppressed. Even though his saber intent was transcendent, at this moment, it was also suppressed. Good, a good saber fanatic. A strange light flashed in Lin Fei's eyes. Shen Liangxin, who had sealed his saber for 20 years, was very different from Li Sandao, who had buried his saber for 40 years. Shen Liangxin, even if his saber was sealed, his heart had a saber. In fact, in every moment of the past 20 years, he had been progressing. It seemed like his saber was sealed, but he was actually comprehending the saber. Shen Liangxin 20 years ago, surely his saber technique was powerful. Even, he had also comprehended saber intent. Whether it was mastery or transcendence, but definitely not perfection. but just 20 years. Saber fanatic Shen Liangsen's saber intent had already reached perfection. This was something Shen Liangsen comprehended entirely on his own. By himself, he had slowly elevated his saber intent to perfection. And what about Li Sandao? 40 years. Only simplified 3 saber moves into one. The vast saber intent suppressed Lin Fei firmly. For the first time, Lin Fei was suppressed by someone else's martial Dao true intent. He also felt the pain as if there was always a saber edge cutting his body. It seemed like at any moment there was a hanging saber that would fall and kill him. This was the feeling of being suppressed by saber intent. Lin Fei knew that he couldn't win against Shen Liangsen with saber intent. Therefore, he didn't hesitate and immediately mobilized all the saber chi in his body. Boom! A saber energy of up to 250 meters appeared. It was vast and traversed in the void. Heavenly saber. Lin Fei directly condensed a heavenly saber. With the appearance of the heavenly saber, an invisible momentum enveloped the entire void. The momentum of the heavenly saber. Once heavenly saber art reached perfection, it could generate the momentum of the heavenly saber. Back then, Lin Fei used the momentum of the heavenly saber, suppressed the strength of 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators, and killed all of them. Now, with the emergence of the momentum of the heavenly saber, Lin Fei, who was originally suppressed by Shen Liangsen's saber intent, that feeling of being suppressed has reduced by about 80 to 90%. Only a little bit was left. At the same time, Shen Liangsen felt a kind of suppression. This is A glint flashed in Shen Liangsen's eyes. He had never seen this kind of power. This kind of suppression made him feel as if there was a flash of insight in his mind. It seemed that saber intent could also be like this. Suppression. To suppress with a certain power. Shen Liangsen's saber intent had already reached perfection. But he didn't know that the above saber intent was saber momentum. He just saw Lin Fei's heavenly saber momentum and immediately had an outburst of inspiration and a slight touch of his saber intent. This understanding of the saber could be described as terrifying. However, no matter what his realization was, it must be after this battle. If he failed in this battle, that was death. When dead, everything is in vain. Therefore, when Lin Fei's saber energy and heavenly saber momentum had not reached their peak, Shen Liangsen drew his saber. Swish! This saber was earth-shattering. Quick to the extreme and also simple to the extreme. Just like the saber drawing technique. Yes, it was the saber drawing technique. Lin Fei saw a shadow of the saber drawing technique in it. Ultimate saber slash. Shen Liangsen's voice echoed in the void. At the same time, a more than 200 meters huge saber glowed that seemed no less than Lin Fei's saber energy suddenly penetrated the void. There was also a sharp edge and an unparalleled innate true chi. This saber exhausted Shen Liangsen's 20 years of accumulation. This was not the saber drawing technique but the ultimate saber slash he created by referring to the saber drawing technique. Dangerous. Lin Fei felt a trace of danger. Ever since he understood the saber intent, for the first time, Lin Fei felt danger in a battle with a martial artist. Even when he was in the hidden sword sect, fighting against Li Yibai, the #1 swordsman in the world, Lin Fei did not feel this kind of danger. And now, he felt danger. That saber glow was very terrifying. Moreover, Shen Liangsen's innate true chi, obviously, had also reached perfection. Shen Liangsen was a martial arts grand master. True chi perfection, saber intent perfection. Shen Liangsen could be described as the strongest martial artist Lin Fei has ever encountered. Heavenly saber art slash. Facing this saber, Lin Fei also didn't think about anything. Without any reservation, instantly erupted all his saber chi. Immediately, the 250 meters heavenly saber in the void was also directly vast and mighty, with the momentum of heaven falling, slashed fiercely toward Shen Liangxin. Boom! Saber glow and saber energy collided with each other. This was their strongest blow. Endless saber energy and saber glow were entangled and collided crazily. At the same time, they were also wreaking havoc in the void. Even on the lake's surface, it set off waves of shockwaves, like rolling waves. Chapter. A saber glow cut open Lin Fei's arm and drew a half-finger-long bloodstain. Lin Fei did not move. He looked at Shen Liangxin not far away. Chapter 160. Two saber intense. Puh. Shen Liangxin's robe was torn apart in an instant. Stunning bloodstains covered his body, making him look like a blood man. However, Shen Liangxin did not fall. He reached out his hand, touching a bloodstain on his neck. This bloodstain was very shallow. Although it was also bleeding, it was just a skin wound. If it was a little deeper, it would have cut the carotid artery. At that time, the blood would not stop. Even if he was a martial arts grandmaster, he cannot escape the fate of death. Shen Liangxin's expression was somewhat complex, and he asked in a low voice, "Why didn't you kill me? Your saber energy can tear my body apart. But why did you hold back your saber energy at the last moment?" Shen Liangxin knew very well. If Lin Fei didn't hold back his saber energy at the last moment, he would definitely died. For Shen Liangxin, death was not something to be afraid of. He had been looking for exotic beasts all over the place, but there was no hope at all. In his lifetime, he could never reach body perfection, nor could he establish a foundation to become a martial saint. Therefore, even if he had good luck and obtained countless superior saber techniques and martial arts, what about it? 100 years later, it's still a mound of yellow earth. Dying in the hands of a top saber master could be considered a worthy life. Lin Fei looked at Shen Liangxin. He calmly said, "There are too few real saber masters in the world. If I become a martial saint in the future, but there are no peers, how lonely it would be. Besides, your talent in saber techniques is no less than mine. If you die now, won't there be one less stunning human saber saint in the future?" Saber saint. Shen Liangxin sighed deeply and shook his head. "Although your true chi has not reached perfection, with your strength and status, you must have known about martial arts foundation building, right? In Great Chan, exotic beasts have become extinct. I have searched everywhere, even all over Great Chan. But there is not a trace of an exotic beast. Without the flesh and blood of an exotic beast, how can one achieve body perfection? If the body is not perfect, one can never become a martial saint, so, whether it's a martial saint or a saber saint, no matter how stunning you are, in the end, you are just a mound of yellow earth." Obviously, Shen Liangxin had given up. He couldn't become a martial saint. No matter how high the talent of the saber technique was, what was the use? Not dead now. 100 years later, he would die. Yes, without the flesh and blood of exotic beasts, whether it's a saber saint or a martial saint, it's ultimately an unreachable drain. Lin Fei also sighed. The founder of the 9 Profound sect probably experienced such despair. "Lin Fei, I owe you a life. If you need me someday, you can take this life," Shen Liangxin said solemnly. Then, he turned around and prepared to leave. This time it was over. Having seen the saber technique of the immortal Slayer saber, he had no regrets. He would return to the countryside and end this crippled life. Interested in hunting exotic beasts? Suddenly, Lin Fei's voice came from behind. Whoosh! Shen Liangxin abruptly turned around, staring intently at Lin Fei. Even his gaze was like a sharp saber. What did you just say? Hunting exotic beasts, are you interested? Exotic beasts, you know where the exotic beasts are? Shen Liangxin was very excited. Originally, he had completely given up. He thought he could not become a martial saint in this life. But now, Lin Fei's words gave him a glimmer of hope. Yes, I know something about the whereabouts of exotic beasts. So, do you dare to hunt exotic beasts? Ha ha ha, the heavens have mercy, the path of martial arts is not cut off. Hunt exotic beasts, why not? I've been waiting for this day for 20 years. Shen Liangsen's body once again emitted a terrifying saber intent. It was as if he had turned back into a peerless saber. Sharp and compelling. Where are the exotic beasts? Don't worry, wait for me for a while, my saber intent is about to reach perfection. Saber intent perfection? Shen Liangsen suddenly looked at Lin Fei, unsure. He just remembered Lin Fei was testing his saber technique with all the saber masters in the world. Now, Lin Fei has defeated him. Did that mean he had succeeded in testing the saber? However, Lin Fei did not speak. He immediately sat cross-legged on the ground, and the saber intent on his body began to radiate little by little. At the same time, a system voice sounded in Lin Fei's mind. Your martial art, Heavenly Saber Art, has captured the innate perfection level saber technique, Mountain Saber Technique. Training progress increased by 10%. Your martial art, Heavenly Saber Art, has captured the innate perfection level saber technique, Ultimate Saber Slash. Training progress increased by 20%. Your martial art, Heavenly Saber Art, has given birth to saber intent. Lin Fei was somewhat surprised. Unexpectedly, Shen Liangsen actually possessed two innate perfection level saber techniques. Moreover, one of them could actually increase the training progress of Heavenly Saber Art by 20%. This was enough to show the terror of this saber technique. It was by no means a common innate saber technique. However, whether it was an increase of 20% or 10%, actually, it's the same. Because once the training progress of Heavenly Saber Art reaches 100%, it would generate saber intent. And now, the saber intent was born. A dominant and unparalleled saber intent suddenly erupted from Lin Fei's body. At the same time, Shen Liangsen's saber was even shaking violently. Obviously, it was also affected by Lin Fei's saber intent. Your saber intent of saber drawing technique is trying to devour the saber intent Heavenly Saber Art. The two saber intents have started to duel. The duel is in progress. Then, Lin Fei began to concentrate his consciousness in his mind again. At the same time, two distinct saber intents appeared on Lin Fei. For Shen Liangsen, who was very sensitive to saber intent, noticed it immediately. Two saber intents. Shen Liangsen was very surprised. Lin Fei actually comprehended two saber intents. This was very rare in the world. Shen Liangsen himself had achieved saber intent perfection. He knew very well. Comprehending one kind of saber intent is already very difficult, let alone comprehending two saber intents. Usually, one would comprehend a kind of saber intent, then use the saber intent as a foundation, continuously refining and understanding it. Finally, train it to perfection. And Lin Fei seemed to be taking a different path. Two saber intents are conflicting, but Lin Fei did not interfere, instead letting the two saber intents conflict. Could it be that he's walking the path of merging saber intents? He wants to merge two kinds of saber intents and then make the saber intent reach perfection. Shen Liangsen thought of a possibility. However, merging saber intents was much more difficult than simply comprehending a single saber intent to perfection. Not many people would choose this method of merging saber intents. However, if this method was successful, the saber intent would be very strong. It would possess the characteristics and advantages of two kinds of saber intents. Moreover, if one could truly comprehend saber intent at an extremely fast speed, then merging saber intents could also make the saber intent reach perfection in the shortest time. Clearly, Lin Fei was such a top talent. At a young age, he had comprehended two kinds of saber intents. At this moment, in Lin Fei's mind, the saber drawing technique's saber intent and the heavenly saber's saber intent were fiercely fighting. The heavenly saber's saber intent, although it had just been born and even the mastery couldn't be considered, it was too powerful that even able to make other saber techniques bow down. This was the reason why when the heavenly saber was out, all the sabers bowed down. Therefore, the saber intent born of heavenly saber art was naturally extremely powerful. Even if the saber intent of the saber drawing technique had already transcended, it was still unable to devour heavenly saber art in a short time. At this time, Lin Fei needed to intervene. Saber drawing technique's saber intent, or heavenly saber's saber intent. He fell into a dilemma. However, no matter which saber intent was the main one, Lin Fei must make a choice. Chapter 161. Finally became a martial arts grandmaster. Lin Fei closed his eyes. Memories emerged in his mind. Saber drawing technique. Lin Fei obviously had affection for saber drawing technique. His saber intent generated was based on the saber drawing technique, and it helped Lin Fei to become the #1 saber under heaven. However, Lin Fei knew the saber drawing technique was ultimately inferior to the heavenly saber art. Heavenly saber art was not only an innate level saber technique, more importantly, saber drawing technique also had the momentum of the heavenly saber. This was imitating the saber momentum. There were some traces of saber momentum. If the saber intent of heavenly saber art was the main one, then when Lin Fei's saber intent tried to transform into saber momentum in the future, there would definitely be advantages. Thinking of this, Lin Fei made a decision instantly. Heavenly saber art, / Lin Fei shouted lowly. Immediately, in his mind, the illusion of the saber intent of heavenly saber art instantly wiped out the saber intent of the saber drawing technique. The two saber intents in Lin Fei's mind disappeared instantly. At the same time, Lin Fei felt that the transcendent saber intent in his body seemed to have actively integrated into the saber intent of heavenly saber art, and the saber intent of heavenly saber art was rapidly improving at a visible speed. Mastery, transcendence, perfection. There was almost no pause, no obstacles. The saber intent of heavenly saber art directly reached perfection. Even more than that, after reaching perfection, the saber intent of heavenly saber art even improved a little bit more. Lin Fei could vaguely feel the progress of cultivation after saber intent reached perfection. It was actually improving in the direction of saber momentum. Although it was just a direction, this was already luckier than countless martial artists. After all, even the direction, many martial artists didn't have this method. Like Shen Liangsen's saber intent had long reached perfection. However, he couldn't find the direction to continue improving his saber intent. And Lin Fei used the saber intent of heavenly saber art as the main one, integrating the transcendent saber intent of the saber drawing technique. Not only did the saber intent reach perfection, he even directly found the direction above the saber intent. Did it work? It really worked. The fusion of the two saber intents, Lin Fei's saber intent has reached perfection. A hint of seriousness appeared on Shen Liangsen's face. Lin Fei actually fused two kinds of saber intents and made the saber intent reach perfection. Boon. The saber intent of Lin Fei's perfection spread out in all directions, vast and powerful. Shen Liangsen felt as if a huge mountain was weighing on him. So, Shen Liangsen naturally erupted his saber intent as well. His saber intent was also perfection. And before, Shen Liangsen's saber intent had suppressed Lin Fei's transcendent saber intent. But now, when Shen Liangsen once again erupted his perfection saber intent, he found out his saber intent was actually being suppressed by Lin Fei's saber intent. How is this possible? Shen Liangsen was very confident in his own saber intent. He knew that saber intent also has strengths and weaknesses. Even if they were all perfection saber intent, there was still strengths and weaknesses. Shen Liangsen's saber intent had been honed through countless trials. It was the purest saber intent. It could be considered as the ultimate saber intent. Therefore, he created the ultimate saber slash. Its power was extremely terrifying. Among the innate saber techniques, it could be considered one of the top saber techniques. But even so, his saber intent was actually suppressed by Lin Fei's saber intent. This was simply incredible. Shen Liangxin didn't know Lin Fei's saber intent was based on the saber intent of Heavenly Saber Art, the top innate saber technique that imitates saber momentum. The Heavenly Saber was out, and all sabers bow their heads. It could almost suppress all saber techniques. This was the terrifying part of Heavenly Saber Art. Otherwise, Heavenly Saber Art could not capture other saber techniques, forcefully integrate them, then give birth to saber intent. Lin Fei's saber intent finally reached perfection and even suppressed Shen Liangxin's saber intent, but it was not over yet. On the contrary, this was just the beginning. With the perfection of Lin Fei's saber intent, the saber qi in Lin Fei's body was also increasing crazily, as if boiling. After all, Lin Fei's saber qi was closely related to saber intent. The progress of Lin Fei's true intention scroll was only 42%. But now, with the perfection of Lin Fei's saber intent, its progress began to skyrocket. 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%. At the same time, in Lin Fei's mind, the system's voice sounded again. Your martial arts true intention scroll, inspired by the perfection of saber intent, begins to actively integrate saber intent. Your true intention scroll's progress has increased to 100%. Your true intention scroll has reached perfection. Boom. In the void, countless spiritual qi of heaven and earth converged above Lin Fei's head, just like a giant vortex. The terrifying spiritual qi, like a river rushing back, rushed crazily into Lin Fei's body. Countless heavenly and earthly spiritual qi transformed into innate true qi, then fused with Lin Fei's saber intent and converted into saber qi. Lin Fei's saber qi, almost at a speed visible to the naked eye, quickly expanding. The pressure on Lin Fei was also revealed without concealment. This was the pure pressure of saber qi. Is this a true qi perfection? Martial arts Grand Master Shen Liangxin was even more shocked. Lin Fei tried sabers with the world's saber users not to temper the saber intent but to generate a second type of saber intent. Then the two types of saber intent fused, making the saber intent complete perfection. Shen Liangxin could understand that. But what did saber intent perfection have to do with innate true qi? The two were completely unrelated. But now, not only had Lin Fei's saber intent reached perfection, but even true qi had also reached perfection. Was this a coincidence? Shen Liangxin simply didn't believe that this was any coincidence. Lin Fei's innate true qi definitely had a lot to do with the saber intent. Sure. Lin Fei opened his eyes. At this moment, his saber qi and saber intent all radiated without scruples. Even Shen Liangxin had to take a few steps back. He felt that Lin Fei's strength now had increased by more than 10 times. If he fought with Lin Fei again, Shen Liangxin estimated that he couldn't even block a move. Lin Fei, congratulations. Now that true qi is perfection and saber intent is perfection, you are truly a martial arts grandmaster now. And it's just a step away from being a martial saint. Shen Liangxin spoke, congratulating Lin Fei. Saber qi perfection. Saber intent perfection. Today, I finally became a martial arts grandmaster. Lin Fei's eyes were very calm. But his heart was not calm. Martial arts grandmaster. This was almost standing at the pinnacle of the innate. The next step was only one goal. Foundation establishment. At this moment, Lin Fei's saber qi was boiling inside his body. He couldn't help but let out a long howl. Boom. The next moment, Lin Fei's saber energy quickly condensed into a giant heavenly saber in the void. Heavenly Saber Art. And this time the condensed heavenly saber was not 250 meters but 1,000 meters. 1,000 meters of saber energy, as if it cut open the void. Looking far away, as if a huge crack had appeared in the sky. System. Lin Fei murmured in his heart. Immediately, the system panel appeared in front of him. Host, Lin Fei. Martial Arts Realm, Martial Arts Grandmaster. True Intention Scroll, Perfection. Saber Intent, Perfection, Progress 5%. Fist Intent, Mastery, Progress 81%. Immeasurable Fist, Transcendence, Progress 50%. Close Yet Distant, Transcendence, Progress 0%. Refining the Golden Body, Progress 0%. Lin Fei looked at the system panel. The martial arts realm had already become a martial arts grandmaster. Moreover, Saber Intent had reached perfection. And after perfection, there was still a 5% progress in cultivation. Lin Fei estimated that if the Saber Intent continued to improve, once it reached 100% progress in cultivation, then the Saber Intent could transform into Saber Momentum. Saber Momentum could be compared to martial saints. Of course, this would definitely be difficult. However, this represented that Lin Fei now had a direction toward Saber Momentum. This point had already surpassed countless martial artists. Now that Lin Fei's Saber Chi was perfect and Saber Intent was perfect, his entire martial arts cultivation had reached a point where it can no longer progress. Next, he only had one goal. That was to build the foundation. Brother Shen, let's go. Lin Fei left the riverside directly with Shen Liangson. Chapter 162. Saber cleaves a snow avalanche. The northern territory of Great Chan. This place was once known as the North Country, the Snow Country. It snowed all year round, with nearly 300 days of icy weather. The climate was extremely cold. The people living here were called the Snow Clan. They once established a kingdom called Snow Country. However, it was later annihilated by Great Chan. Great Chan incorporated Snow Country into its territory, becoming its own northern frontier. Extreme North City. As the name suggests, it was the city at the farthest north. Beyond Extreme North City lay an endless snowfield. The people of the Snow Clan all had white hair and their bodies were tall. They were different from people in other parts of Great Chan. At the city gate, there were two men of average stature, at least when compared to the people of the Snow Clan here, standing quietly at the city gate. They were staring at the situation outside the city gate. Motionless. After an unknown amount of time, Shen Liangson slowly said, "Today is the day we agreed with Liu Yibai. Brother Lin, but Liu Yibai hasn't arrived yet." These two men were none other than Lin Fei and Shen Liangson. Since the day of their battle by the river, the two had been nearly inseparable. Every day they would spar with each other in saber techniques, honing their saber intent. Moreover, Lin Fei even shared the situation he had learned about saber momentum with Shen Liangson. Lin Fei also wrote a letter to Liu Yibai explaining Shen Liangson's situation. He hoped that Shen Liangson could join them in hunting exotic beasts. Liu Yibai readily agreed, of course. After all, even an underage exotic beast was quite terrifying. Even if he and Lin Fei joined forces, they would not be entirely confident. As for Shen Liangson, according to Lin Fei, he was also a powerful figure at the same level as them, nearly unbeatable below the Foundation establishment realm. Therefore, with Shen Liangson's participation, the hunting of exotic beasts might go more smoothly. Of course, the most important point was an underage exotic beast was very huge. Its flesh and blood were enough for 4 or 5 people to reach body perfection. Therefore, even with the addition of Shen Liangson, it would not pose a threat to the interests of Liu Yibai and Lin Fei. Liu Yibai wrote back agreeing to Shen Liangson's participation. Then he set the time. They would meet in the extreme north city of the Northern Territory on the 8th day of the 3rd month. Today was the 8th day of the 3rd month. Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin arrived at Extreme North City 3 days in advance. But Liu Yibai has not shown up yet. Continue to wait. Lin Fei calmly replied. Shen Liangxin also nodded. The two had been waiting in Extreme North City for 3 days. They didn't mind waiting a little longer. Who? The cold wind whistled. Snowflakes fell. Shoosh! Both Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin suddenly looked up, looking straight ahead. On the deserted street, a man wearing a thick cotton coat, with a long sword on his back, was walking step by step towards the city gate. Number 1 sword under heaven, Liu Yibai. Shen Liangxin said solemnly. He had never seen Liu Yibai. But he had heard of Liu Yibai's reputation a long time ago. Number 1 sword under heaven. What an honor. Once, Shen Liangxin even thought about seeking Liu Yibai. However, Liu Yibai had been in seclusion for many years, with his sword sealed. Shen Liangxin gave up on the idea. Saber fanatic, Shen Liangxin. Liu Yibai said calmly, Master Lin says that your saber techniques are divine and are not weaker than his. Brother Lin overpraises me. Shen Liangxin and Liu Yibai met each other and thus got acquainted. However, Liu Yibai did not mention the idea of comparing notes with Shen Liangxin. Shen Liangxin was a person recognized by Lin Fei. He trusted Lin Fei quite a bit. Brother Liu, you asked us to meet in Extreme North City. Could it be that the exotic beast is in the Northern Territory? Shen Liangxin couldn't help but ask. He was even more anxious than Lin Fei. After all, both he and Liu Yibai were much older than Lin Fei. If they missed this opportunity, even if they had the flesh and blood of an exotic beast in the future, their age would be too great, their energy would not be up to par, and their vital energy would be declining. It's doubtful they would be able to reach body perfection. It's not in the Northern Territory, but beyond the Northern Territory. Brother Lin, Brother Shen, let's go. With that, Liu Yibai directly led Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin out of Extreme North City. They arrived outside the city. Outside Extreme North City, everywhere was a snowfield. The three of them walked through the snow, continuing northward. The further north they went, the colder it became. This kind of cold was already unbearable for ordinary people. Even a quiet martial artist, it was afraid they would be frozen to death in this snowfield. The Northern Territory is cold, especially this extreme northern place, which is extremely cold. Go further north and we'll encounter the cold current. The cold current could even freeze our innate true qi. It's a huge drain on innate true qi. So, we need to be quick. We must get through the cold current as quickly as possible. Remember, never burst out your innate true qi. Otherwise, once a big avalanche is triggered, we would probably have no place to be buried. Liu Yibai reminded Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin with a serious expression. In fact, without Liu Yibai's reminder, both Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin knew that this extreme northern place was not to be underestimated. Because of the cold right now, they had to use their innate true qi and saber energy to resist it. Let's go. The next moment, Liu Yibai's figure darted forward. He directly sprinted forward. Lin Fei also used the close yet distant technique, following behind him. Shen Liangxin was not to be outdone. He also followed closely. The three of them ran wildly all the way. The innate true qi and saber qi in their bodies seemed to be vaguely frozen, running not smoothly. Who? The gale howled. On both sides were towering snow mountains. Below was only a small canyon. There were hardly any traces of human activity. Even the birds and beasts had vanished. This place seemed like a forbidden zone for life. Suddenly, Liu Yibai raised his head sharply. In the sky, the snow fell even heavier, and more terrifying was the wild wind, blowing incessantly. The snow mountains on all sides were faintly trembling and roaring. Rumble. Soon, the snow mountains on all sides were roaring. Not good, it's an avalanche. Li Yibai's face changed. Avalanche. And it was a large one. There were avalanches on all sides. At such a fast speed, even with the speed of Lin Fei and the others, they could not retreat. This was the power of nature. It was the power of heaven and earth. Even if they were martial arts grandmasters, standing at the peak of humanity in the face of this natural force, they still seemed insignificant. This was the difference from a chi cultivator. A chi cultivator could at least fly. However, in this extreme northern place, there were cold currents which could freeze true chi and spiritual power. If a chi condensation cultivator really tried to fly using magical artifacts, their spiritual power would be frozen and they would instantly fall down and be smashed into a mush. This extreme northern place was a true forbidden zone for life. Neither martial artists nor chi condensation cultivators dared to come here. We must rush through, regardless of the cost. Yu Yibai was furiously stimulating his innate true chi. He used his body technique to try to rush through at the fastest speed before the avalanche arrived. However, he was ultimately too slow. Boom! The avalanche arrived. It directly fell onto the path in front of the three of them. This only path in the canyon was completely blocked. At the same time, a more massive avalanche was rolling down from the mountain peak. At this moment, the three of them seemed to have fallen into a death trap. This is the power of heaven and earth, the power of nature. How insignificant our power seems in the face of the power of heaven and earth. We can't withstand a single avalanche. Shen Liangsen murmured quietly. He seemed to have foreseen the end. Man can conquer nature. If there is no way, then I will cut a path. Lin Fei dashed to the front where the path was blocked by the avalanche. A large amount of snow, rocks, and dirt blocked the path like a small mountain. It was despairing. Lin Fei's saber energy surged out wildly from his body. In an instant, 1,000 meters high saber energy appeared in the void, emitting infinite sharpness. 1,000 meters was almost as high as some mountain peaks. Lin Fei's clothes were flapping. His expression was solemn, filled with a murderous aura. He joined his hands together toward the direction that was blocked in front and direct/downward. Heavenly saber art, /. Suddenly, the 1,000-meter saber energy, magnificent and carrying endless sharpness, was like a divine saber descending from the heavens, slashed fiercely onto the snow heap. Boom! The huge snow heap was directly shredded by the terrifying saber energy. A snow heap as high as 1,000 meters, similar to a small mountain peak. But at this moment, it was sliced open by Lin Fei's 1,000-meter saber energy, directly creating a huge ravine. Even if it was Shen Liangsen and Li Yibai, who had already reached the pinnacle of the world's martial arts, at this moment, they also felt an unparalleled shock in their hearts. This saber of Lin Fei was unlike any earthly saber technique. This was the real power of heaven and earth. Chapter 163. The exotic beast is here. Let's go. Li Yibai and Shen Liangsen were shocked. But after all, the two were martial arts grandmasters. They quickly recovered their senses. Immediately, they employed their lightness skills, following the path that Lin Fei had cut out with his saber energy. They swiftly moved away. Rumble. Just after they left, the big avalanche arrived. The entire valley was completely sealed off. Huff! The three of them breathed a sigh of relief. They looked back and glanced behind them. The valley was gone. In its place was a new mountain peak. It was a snowy mountain. Facing such power of nature, once they were still in the valley, would undoubtedly die. There would be no chance of luck. Brother Lin, you. Despite having interacted with Lin Fei for 1 or 2 months, ever since Lin Fei achieved perfection in saber chi and saber intent, the two had never made a full effort again. Unexpectedly, today, when Lin Fei made a move again, it was so shocking. He forcibly cut out a path with his saber energy. That terrifying power, even if those top-tier chi condensation cultivators used magical treasures, might not be able to match it. Magical treasures. These were usually owned by those who have achieved the Foundation establishment realm. Lin Fei's this saber seemed to be approaching the power of the Foundation establishment realm. Even if it was not far off. Lin Fei was able to slash out such a terrifying saber. Even if the founder of the Nine Profound Sect were to resurrect, it probably wouldn't be much different. In terms of combat power, the founder of the Nine Profound Sect was truly invincible below the Foundation establishment realm. And now Lin Fei also vaguely possessed this kind of grandeur and style. Invincible below the Foundation establishment realm. Especially that saber. It was no longer like any earthly saber technique. At least, Shen Liangxin and Li Yibai, fairly speaking, couldn't block that saber. However, despite being shocked, Shen Liangxin and Li Yibai understood the most important thing right now was to slay the exotic beast and become martial saints. Once they became martial saints, they could slash a sword or saber stronger than Lin Fei just now. Foundation establishment was the key. The three continued to head north. The further north they went, the colder it became. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. They didn't know how long had passed. Suddenly, Liu Yibai stopped. "We are here." Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin looked ahead. It was a flat plain and there was nothing in sight. No mountains, no vegetation, no animals. Only glacier. Endless glacier. It was so vast that one couldn't see the end. Are there exotic beasts here? Lin Fei looked around. It was empty. Where could there be traces of any exotic beast? Shen Liangxin couldn't help but ask, "Brother Liu, this is an empty and vast expanse. It's endless. Where could an exotic beast possibly hide? Could you have remembered wrong?" Although the possibility was low, it was not impossible. After all, this snowy field looked the same everywhere. Not much difference. Liu Yibai shook his head slightly, pointing to the glacier in front of him. He said calmly, "I didn't remember wrong, the exotic beast is under the glacier." Under the glacier? Shen Liangxin had a thought in his heart. Since it was under the glacier, wouldn't that require breaking the glacier? Therefore, Shen Liangxin pulled out his saber and was ready to break the glacier. "Brother Shen, I advise you not to touch the glacier, otherwise it will be hard to predict life and death," Liu Yibai warned. Hard to predict life and death? Shen Liangxin didn't understand. What danger could this mere glacier pose? Liu Yibai didn't speak. A strand of innate true chi flew out directly and fell above the glacier. Crack. When the innate true chi had just arrived above the glacier, it was actually frozen into an ice block and fell to the ground, shattered to pieces. This scene made both Shen Liangxin and Lin Fei can't help but feel shocked in their hearts. This is... Shen Liangxin also released a strand of true chi. However, the result was the same as Li Yibai's. Both were frozen, fell on the glacier, and shattered into pieces. Swoosh! Lin Fei flicked his finger. His saber chi flew into the air above the glacier and stayed a little longer. However, it was only a little longer. It was still the same as Shen Liangxin and Liu Yibai's innate true chi. It was frozen into ice crystals, fell on the glacier, and shattered. It can actually freeze my saber chi. There's something strange about this glacier. Lin Fei had a slight chill in his heart. He knew very well how strong his saber chi is currently. Lin Fei's inner power was 3 in 1. This foundation surpassed countless martial artists. Later, it was transformed into innate true chi, which combined with saber intent to transform into saber energy. In essence, Lin Fei underwent an additional enhancement at the innate level. Overall, from inner power to saber chi, Lin Fei had almost undergone 2 enhancements. Therefore, Lin Fei's saber chi was now so strong, so terrifying, and far exceeding other martial arts grandmasters. However, even so, it still couldn't resist this strange glacier. Liu Yibai said sullenly, "This glacier is very strange. It seems to be a real forbidden area for life. Whether it's inner power, true chi, spiritual power, magical artifact, etc., one step into the glacier, it will be frozen. Even if a martial arts grandmaster steps in, within a breath, he will turn into an ice sculpture, forever left on the glacier. Perhaps only a martial saint or a foundation establishment true person can forcefully break into the glacier. But even such existences probably won't get far on the glacier." Lin Fei nodded. This world had too many secrets. This land of the extreme north was actually such a terrifying place. Lin Fei was afraid that many people want to leave the Great Chan through the land of the extreme north was wishful thinking. Great Chan was vast, but there were still people who want to leave. However, upon reaching the land of the extreme north, this glacier was almost impassable. As for what was at the end of the glacier, nobody knew. "What about the exotic beast?" Shen Liangxin asked. "It's under this glacier. Under the glacier is the sea, called the North Ice Sea. The exotic beast I found lives under the sea. It should be naturally adapted to the cold of the sea area. When the exotic beasts of Great Chan were completely extinct, only this harsh environment of the North Ice Sea could possibly allow exotic beasts to survive." Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin thought carefully. It seemed to make sense. If the exotic beasts were not in harsh environments, they would probably have been killed by some martial saints long ago. Only in the North Ice Sea were even the martial saints helpless, so they've been able to reproduce safely till now. This also gave hope to people like Lin Fei. "Brother Liu, the glacier is so dangerous, how can we lure out that exotic beast?" Shen Liangxin asked again. If the exotic beast was in the North Ice Sea, then the three of them, even as martial arts grandmasters, were helpless. After all, they dared not step on the glacier. How could they hunt the exotic beast in the North Ice Sea? Young exotic beasts are very playful. I have observed that around the end of March each year, young exotic beasts will appear. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's two. We just need to wait quietly. Wait for the exotic beast to come ashore from the North Ice Sea, and then immediately take action. We must kill the exotic beast at all costs. This is our only hope. Once failed, the exotic beast may not come ashore again. By then, none of us will be able to build a foundation and become martial saint. This is also why, although I knew the whereabouts of the exotic beast many years ago, I have not taken any action. After all, once we fail, it would cut off our last hope." Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin looked at each other. They understood what Liu Yibai meant. "All right, let's wait then." So, the three of Lin Fei found a place that could slightly hide their bodies. Then they sat down cross-legged. They have innate true chi or saber chi to protect their bodies. It was not a problem to hold on for half a month. Time passed bit by bit. They set off on the 8th of March. It took some time on the road, but it should only be a few days. Now it's only mid-March at most. The exotic beast had not yet appeared. The three of them sat cross-legged on the ground, unmoving. They were quickly covered by snowflakes, forming three ice sculptures, perfectly blending with the icy and snowy environment around. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. They didn't know how long it had passed. Crack. Suddenly, on the usually calm glacier, there was a faint vibration. On the solid glacier, a faint crack appeared. Boom, boom, boom. As if something terrifying was hitting the glacier from underneath. The exotic beast is here. Whoosh. The three ice sculptures in front of the glacier opened their eyes instantly. Chapter 164. It seems too weak. Crack. The glacier was cracking. Numerous cracks appear, densely packed. The impact from below was getting louder and stronger. Boom. Finally, the glacier shattered. A region of the glacier hundreds of meters in size was completely shattered. Splash. A huge head slowly emerged from the North Ice Sea beneath the glacier. It looked somewhat like a bear. However, when the head and body of this exotic beast gradually emerged, the three ice sculptures fell silent. This exotic beast was a bear enlarged several hundreds of times. It was several hundred meters tall, as large as a mountain. It slowly crawled from the North Ice Sea onto the shore. With every step it took, the ground shook. Liu Yibai, was this the exotic beast you spoke of? And it's a juvenile exotic beast. Shen Liangxin sent a message. Last time, it wasn't this big. When was the last time? 30 years ago. Lin Fei fell silent. Shen Liangxin fell silent. Even Liu Yibai fell silent. Previously, in Liu Yibai's description, this exotic beast was strong, but it was far from being as big as it was now, reaching several hundred of meters tall. 30 years ago, the exotic beast wasn't even 30 meters tall. What did this exotic beast eat in these 30 years? It directly grew to several hundreds of meters. Just looking at its size, that was the most straightforward deterrent. 30 years ago, Liu Yibai, facing an exotic beast less than 30 meters tall, already found it tricky and needed to bring Lin Fei along. Now, facing the giant bear exotic beast reaching several hundred meters tall, the three of them really didn't have confidence. They didn't even have a glimmer of assurance. Should we go back, cultivate for some more time, and then come back? Shen Liangxin proposed a suggestion. Martial artists fight against the heavens and the earth, they do not fear. But not being afraid does not mean courting death. Facing such a terrifying giant beast. Just the three of them. They probably couldn't even withstand a slap. Cultivate. At our level, we have reached the limit. Not to mention cultivating for some time. What if we cultivate for 30 or 50 years? Without foundation building, there was no hope for even the slightest improvement. The next time we come, we will still face this exotic beast. By then, this exotic beast will no longer be a juvenile exotic beast, but an adult exotic beast. It might even be stronger than a typical foundation establishment cultivator or martial site. Liu Yibai slowly spoke. Their communication was done through spiritual messages. Therefore, it wouldn't affect the exotic beast. Shen Liangxin also fell silent. He knew that Liu Yibai was right. Even if they cultivated for another 30, 50 years, what could they achieve? Brother Lin, do we fight or not? Ever since the exotic beast appeared, it was Shen Liangxin and Liu Yibai who were communicating. While Lin Fei had remained silent the whole time, not uttering a single word. Its eyes were its weak points. Even the strongest exotic beast has weaknesses. My saber was too conspicuous, it won't be able to harm its eyes. Brother Liu, your sword was silent and traceless, perhaps it can blind its eyes. This was our only chance. And there was no way back. Lin Fei finally spoke. However, he didn't really answer the question of whether to fight or not. Instead, he pointed out the weak point of the exotic beast. From the beginning, Lin Fei had never considered retreating. Instead, he had been looking for the weaknesses of the exotic beast. Shen Liangxin was taken aback. Liu Yibai fell silent. Ha ha ha, excellent, Brother Lin's determination was admirable. I didn't expect that after hiding my sword for 30 years, my mental will still hasn't improved. What does it matter if I die today? Without becoming a martial sate, even if I survive, there would be no meaning. Liu Yibai began to laugh. His tone was incredibly determined. That's right, I have sealed my saber for 20 years. The loneliness and pain from not being able to improve have tortured me greatly. I would rather die than endure another day without any hope. Shen Liangson also solidified his resolve. In this battle, they might die, but they had to go ahead regardless. Because this was their only chance to establish a foundation. Their only hope. Brother Shen, we will hold off this exotic beast first, distract it. Brother Liu will seize the opportunity. However, Brother Liu, I hope you can seize the opportunity. We may not be able to hold on for long. Lin Fei calmly arranged. And so, the three quietly waited. Shen Liangson was also brewing the timing, trying to lead the exotic beast as far away from the North Ice Sea as possible. Otherwise, once they made their move, if they scared off the exotic beast and let the exotic beast escape into the North Ice Sea, wouldn't it all be for nothing? So, they waited quietly. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. The exotic beast was gradually moving away from the North Ice Sea. It was almost in front of the 3 ice sculptures. Swish! In the next moment, one of the ice sculptures shattered. Shen Liangson made his move with all his strength. Several hundreds of meters long saber light suddenly cut through the sky. The sharp saber blade pointed directly at the exotic beast. Ultimate saber slash. Shen Liangson slashed out with his saber. Roar! The exotic beast roared angrily. It didn't look at Shen Liangson's several hundred-meter-long saber light. It slapped directly out. Amazingly, under the giant palm of the exotic beast, the saber light shattered. Even the skin of the exotic beast was not broken. Shen Liangson could only watch as the giant palm fell. Boom! The next moment, Lin Fei also made his move. Just as the exotic beast's giant palm was about to hit Shen Liangson, he didn't try to save Shen Liangson. Instead, he took advantage of the exotic beast's palm swing when its defense was open and the saber chi in Lin Fei's body burst out. In the void, there appeared a 1,000-meter-high saber energy condensed into a heavenly saber. Exuding the power of a heavenly saber, the terrifying power of the heavenly saber, like a huge mountain, pressed down on the exotic beast. Immediately, the exotic beast roared crazily, seemingly very angry. This was the characteristic of momentum. Whether it was a person or an exotic beast, as long as it was a living being, it will be suppressed by momentum. And this was only the momentum of the heavenly saber. If it was real saber momentum, how strong would that be? Even, perhaps there would be no need to make a move. Just using the saber momentum to suppress would immobilize this exotic beast. The roar of the exotic beast did not stop Lin Fei. He didn't hesitate at all. He clasped his hands together, just like holding up a big saber. Heavenly saber art, slash. The 1,000 meters high saber energy, with Lin Fei's saber intent bolstered and the mysterious momentum of the heavenly saber suppressing. This saber was Lin Fei's peak saber. Even, vaguely, this saber seemed to have broken some kind of boundary. In the void, a trace of black cracks appeared. But it also disappeared in an instant as if it never appeared. Lin Fei didn't care. His entire mind was on this saber. In his mind, there were no other thoughts, only this saber. Boom. Finally, Lin Fei's 1,000 meters saber energy landed on the head of the exotic beast. From top to bottom, it slashed down fiercely. At the same time, Li Yibai's figure didn't know when actually appeared on the head of the exotic beast. Silent and traceless, even Lin Fei did not perceive it. Just as Li Yibai's sword was about to pierce the exotic beast's eye, a line of blood appeared on the beast's head. Squash! The next moment, the beast's head exploded, extending to its entire body. With a plop, the several hundred meters of the exotic beast was split in two. It was cut in half by Lin Fei's saber energy. For a moment, Shen Liangson fell silent. Liu Yibai fell silent. Even Lin Fei himself fell silent. It seems too weak. After a long while, Lin Fei slowly spoke. Chapter 165. Swallowing flesh and blood, heart stopped suddenly. On the snow-covered ground, the body of the exotic beast was sliced in half by the saber energy. It quickly froze over. The cold wind was still howling, but the three of them seemed to be very quiet. It's not that it's too weak. Perhaps you are too strong. After a long while, Shen Liangson looked at Lin Fei with a complex gaze and slowly said, "Brother Lin, I've always had a question. Are you really still an innate martial artist?" Unique fragrance emanated from his body. It was somewhat similar to the scent of sandalwood. It was faint, but very clear. Lin Fei abruptly stood up. He could feel his whole body was full of strength. His chi and blood, muscles, skin, etc. seemed to be completely renewed. Rebirth. Lin Fei thought of a word. System. Lin Fei directly called out the system panel. Host, Lin Fei. Martial Arts Realm, Martial Arts Grandmaster. True Intention Scroll, Perfection. Saber Intent, Perfection, 5% progress. Fist Intent, Mastery, 81% progress. Immeasurable Fist, Transcendence, 50% progress. Close Yet Distant, Transcendence, 0% progress. Refining the Gold Body, Physical Perfection. Seeing the words of physical perfection after the refining the gold body, Lin Fei completely understood. So, to achieve physical perfection, one needs to be reborn. Consuming the flesh and blood of the exotic beast is subtly refining and changing one's body. At this moment, my internal organs, chi and blood, etc., are probably completely different from before. Even, some characteristics of the exotic beast have been integrated. Lin Fei murmured softly. His eyes were shining with a glint of light. No matter what, he had fully achieved physical perfection. Looking at his current characteristics. Skin like a baby, body emitting a unique fragrance, pure and dust-free. Even more, Lin Fei's body was now impervious to swords and spears, unaffected by water or fire, and never sinking in the water. This was physical perfection. Vaguely, it was a bit beyond ordinary people, equivalent to a complete rebirth. Only with such a body can one withstand a foundation establishment. Otherwise, what to build the foundation with? After all, martial artists and chi cultivators were different. A martial artist's strength resided within their own body. All the power was on their own. Therefore, a martial artist's body must be strong. So, to build the foundation, the body must achieve perfection and undergo rebirth. Lin Fei's heart had previously fallen into stagnation. In fact, it wasn't real death but rebirth. Rebirth, just like a newborn baby, was equivalent to gaining a new life. Not only Lin Fei, but Liu Yibai and Shen Liangson were the same. Thump thump thump. Sure enough, with Lin Fei's awakening, Liu Yibai and Shen Liangson, their hearts also started to beat one after another. The two of them abruptly opened their eyes. After seeing Lin Fei, they looked at each other again. Did we undergo rebirth? Obviously, they also knew what had happened. For a moment, they widened their eyes, looking up and down their bodies. It was really a rebirth. Moreover, all the characteristics of physical perfection had them all. Physical perfection, this is physical perfection. This physical perfection can be called a true rebirth, not just a transformation of chi, blood, muscles, and skin, even the meridians inside the body also transform. This way, it allows us to burst out with even stronger innate true chi at once. Even, it makes the quantity of our innate true chi continue to increase. Our strength can naturally continue to improve. Both of them were very excited. They were already martial arts grandmasters. Their strength was almost impossible to improve further unless they built their foundation. But at this moment, after achieving physical perfection, they found that they still had room for improvement. Of course, this bit of improvement was not really important. Because physical perfection represented they could build their foundation. Can we really build our foundation? Shen Liangson was very excited. He kept looking at his own white, tender hands, which were like the skin of a baby. He had mixed feelings. Many years had passed from being full of enthusiasm to despair and then to a glimmer of hope. And now he could finally build his foundation. He felt a bit unreal. Li Yibai, on the other hand, seemed very calm. He was a martial arts Grand Master of the Hidden Sword sect. The Hidden Sword sect had a very detailed description of physical perfection. Therefore, Liu Yibai nodded heavily and said, "Yes, with physical perfection, we can build our foundation." However, typically, to build a foundation, one must achieve physical perfection, true qi perfection, and martial Dao true intent perfection to have great hope. But it's just a great hope. It's not absolutely foolproof. In our Hidden Sword sect's ancient records, some martial artists who achieved physical perfection tried to build their foundation but still failed. Building a foundation is simple to say, but it's difficult to do. It requires a martial artist to continuously compress their own innate true qi. From gaseous innate true qi, compress into liquid true essence. This process will cause a huge impact on the body, equivalent to refining it through many trials. Those without physical perfection can never bear it. Once the true essence appears, it means that the foundation has been successfully built. With true essence nourishing our body's qi, blood, muscles, and skin, our body will continue to improve. Our lifespan will increase, not inferior to those foundation establishment cultivators. Lin Fei and Shen Liangson felt a little stir in their hearts. Compressing true qi into true essence, Thanks for the guidance, Brother Liu. Shen Liangson also made a fist salute to Li Yibai. He was a solitary practitioner. If it weren't for Liu Yibai telling him these things, he would probably have had to go through a lot of trouble to know the secrets of foundation building. This process requires a large amount of support from the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Therefore, it's best to have some formations that gather spiritual qi, or simply be in a place with abundant spiritual qi. The entire north region is actually not suitable for building a foundation. I will return to the Hidden Sword sect and prepare properly before building my foundation. Lin Fei nodded. Building a foundation, of course, needed to be cautious. It's impossible to rush to build a foundation. But Brother Shen, you are a solitary practitioner. If you want to build your foundation and don't have a suitable place with spiritual qi, I'm afraid. Liu Yibai intended to rope in Shen Liangson. But Shen Liangson smiled and said, "Brother Liu, you don't have to worry about that. As Brother Lin knows, I accidentally found a ruin of an ancient martial arts sect. That ruin has plenty of spiritual qi of heaven and earth. I believe it's enough for me to build my foundation." The three of them looked at each other. In that case, let's set off and go back. The hearts of the three were burning with anticipation. They wished they could go back right away to prepare well and build their foundation as soon as possible and achieve the status of martial sate. Let's go. With one step, Lin Fei left. He went straight out of the cave. In a few leaps, the three of them disappeared without a trace.